Huh? Yeah. Okay. Wanted to speak today about the meaning of Tishbi Yitaris Kushisi Boys. Eliyahu Hanavi will answer the questions. You have many cases in the Gemara. Someone will put together a whole sefer recently. Stam, no chidushim. We just collected all the places in the Gemara that it says Teiku. You can look in Hebrew books. They have a sefer Teiku, I think it's called. Stam. Oh, chidush, Moshe just cut him. We should be ready when Moshiach comes. Very ready to go to Eliyahu Hanavi and tell him these are the shadows inside the Tirutzim. Good, yeah, Heinte nehmen wir I said, anyway, fine. So Tishbi, it says that the Gemara says the number of questions that we don't have an answer. The Gemara says Teiku. Teiku literally means it stands as is. We don't have an answer, and there's famous explanation brought out in early Svarim. The Yisrael brings it on other places that Teiku is Rashi Tevis. Tishbi Yitaris Kushi Sui Boy. So Eliyahu Hanavi will come. He'll answer all the questions that there are. Teisus Yamtov, I think, brings it down, and then the Masechta Edius, and the Ma'abit brings it down in the Sefer Beis Elakim. I don't know the first source, I'm not sure, but it's brought down by Gedei Yisrael. I think there could be even earlier sources. The Rebbe, and it's Ha'aris, the Rebbe has, whatever. These are at least some of the sources that I remember. Anyway, so there is a whole discussion from a number of aspects about this idea that Eliyahu Hanavi will answer all the questions. The question, one of the main questions that is asked is that Eliyahu Hanavi is a prophet. And we know that Torah Leiba Shemayim, the Torah is not in the heavens. So if a prophet comes to you and says, you have a question what the halacha is like, someone comes and says that I'm telling you through prophecy that the halacha is so and so. I heard from the Eibishter himself, I heard in the Beis Din Shamayim, in the heavenly court, they decided that the halacha is so and so. You can't listen to him. You can't accept. You don't say he's a liar, but the halacha says that you can't follow a verdict that was not dictated by chachamim that are alive in the shamis begufim, souls in the body, and they decide based on their understanding. That's the way halacha works. It can't be dictated. It says that for a psak halacha, for a halachic verdict, so the Beis Din Shamayim and the Eibush should have to find out what the Beis Din down here, the Jewish court down here says. So the question is, how is Eliyahu Hanavi going to answer all these questions? So half of a very standard explanation, which doesn't explain everything, but it explains a number of situations, is that there's two types of questions. Sometimes there's a question which involves a question in halacha. How do you understand the meaning of the pasuk? How do you understand the meaning of this halacha? In which case, does it apply, doesn't apply? Then there's a number of instances where there's certain questions in halacha that are based on, because we don't know what the facts are. You have a question if this piece of meat is kosher or treif, because two pieces of meat got mixed up. You don't know which is which. So there's halachic implications based on this mix-up. If this piece of meat is not kosher and someone eats it, whatever. There's certain, there's certain, it's a law of kashrus and other things that could be involved. But if a prophet comes, if two pieces of meat get mixed up and the prophet comes and says, this piece of meat is the one that's kosher, this piece of meat is the one that's treif. He's not telling you a prophecy that in the heavenly court they decided that in the case where you have a doubt, this is what the halacha is. He's not telling you any new halachas. He's just being mevaded and metzias. He's just clarifying a doubt that you have regarding an entity that already exists, if it's like this or it's like that. So prophet is any means of proper, identification of what this piece of meat is a valid halachic, way of finding out the truth. So if many things Eliyahu Hanavi will come and say, in certain cases at least, he'll say that when there's a doubt in metzias, when there's a doubt in halach, and not in halachic way of understanding something, but we don't know what the metzias is. We don't know whether in this case. In certain cases in halach, it all depends on understanding how the facts work. So Eliyahu Hanavi will come and say, this is the way the facts work. So in such a case, fine. In such a case, you're allowed to listen to him. Yeah. There's mamish disputing money. It's not there's no, yeah. Huh?
It doesn't mean that you always get good passing. That doesn't mean that it was good passing.
It was going to reveal by Nebuah.
Who says he? Could be Moshiach who's doing it. Je moet dan eens beginnen from Melech Doin.
What is the of Teiku? You're discussing what is Teiku?
Yeah. Now, the truth is, it doesn't help for a number of cases. The reason why it doesn't help for a number of cases, the Gemara says Teiku, it's not discussing a question of figuring out what the Metzius is. It's not a matter of figuring out what the facts are. It's a matter of figuring out the proper understanding of this halacha. Furthermore, there are some that don't accept even the first thing that I mentioned, that Eliyahu Hanavi, certain questions he will answer based on prophecy, and that would be a valid thing because he's just clarifying what the facts are on the ground. He's not coming to say what the halakha is. The halakha is just, once you know the facts, you automatically know what the halakha is. There are some people that hold that even that is not necessarily good. So the Rebbe gives an interesting discussion. The Rebbe says, this is a discussion discusses, a famous halachic discussion discussing a number, some Machzedek I think speaks about it, and one of the Ketzois, others. If you have one halacha leads to another halacha. For example, someone says you could have a certain case, for example, I'll give you a small example where this thing comes up. If someone does a sin, in order to put him to death, in order to punish him, you need to have two witnesses that say that he committed a sin, right? Now, two witnesses saw that someone ate a piece of meat or fat. Now, there's one witness that came along and said that this particular piece of fat was what? Was chaylev, is forbidden fat, so you're not allowed to eat. The only way it was established was through the testimony of one witness. We have a halacha that eid echad nemen b'isurin. One witness is believed when it comes to punish a person that his sin is one thing. When it comes to establish that something is kosher, that that he's telling you it's treif, it's kosher, you could believe a Jew that he says that this is the way it is. So one witness came and said this piece of meat is treif. Another Jew went and ate it, and based on that, Beis Din is going to punish him, whatever it might be. So here, in order for him,
before he ate, it was established as
so here the question is, it comes out that you're punishing him. If you think about it, theoretically, one could argue you're punishing him based on the testimony of one witness, because there's only one witness that said that what he's eating is treif. You had two witnesses that saw that he did the act, but there was one witness that saw that what he was eating is treif. So how could you punish him based on the testimony of one witness? So the answer is, it's two separate things. When we're talking about establishing whether it's kosher or treif, there we trust one witness. Even though later, as a result of the testimony of that one witness, another question will arise, whether this guy should get punished or not, which for that the Torah requires two witnesses, but that what the witness is discussing is a step before. He's clarifying what the actual metzius is, what the piece of meat is. At that point, there was no discussion if he sinned, he didn't. So just saying one thing. It's true, eventually, that testimony will lead to a punishment, which usually would need to have two witnesses. But again, because when he's discussing one thing, which eventually would lead to something, we need to have two witnesses. But at this point, all that's required is one witness. So you have a whole thing, there's a whole discussion about this in halacha. So basically, in a similar vein over here, if let's say you have this the question over here, if this piece of meat is kosher or treif, a prophet comes and says this piece of meat is this is the one that's kosher, this is the one that's not kosher. So there's a discussion in halacha if it's that would work. The Rebbe says we have sometimes in halacha when something is prohibited, even though it's prohibited because of doubt, but then it becomes prohibited be'etzem, it becomes no good in of itself. It doesn't always help to say that by clarifying the facts, then automatically, that as long as you would have to be able to have the same person will be able to paskin, and he's the same one that has to be able to clarify the facts. It won't necessarily work. The Rebbe explains to say that Eliyahu Hanavi would be able to answer these questions with just clarifying the facts, because if clarifying the facts lead to actual laws of other halachas, if a person's allowed to eat it, not allowed to eat, and so on and so forth, then it could already become a question if you could believe a prophet established the fact in such a case. So basically, the famous answer that's given is that Eliyahu Hanavi, when he's going to answer these questions, some questions will be able, according to the approach, that he could answer things, that he could verify the facts based on his prophecy. So So those things that you need to clarify the facts, he'll say as a prophet. But then on the other hand, those things that you need to have someone that, a based-in, a person, a neshama beguf, of soul and a body to understand and comprehend and give explanation. Eliyahu Hanavi is a very big chacham. Eliyahu Hanavi is a big Talmud chacham. He's one of the Rambam mentions him. The Rambam numbers him as one of the Mekabli HaMaseidah. This in the beginning of his introduction to Mishnah Torah. The Rambam writes, they had Moshe Rabbeinu, then it went down to Yeshua, and Eliyahu Hanavi was one of the people that were the chain of tradition of the oral Torah. So he's a
teacher or the student of Elisha?
He was a teacher of Elisha. He was a student of Achia Hashileni.
Yeah.
And it says, huh?
He's a student of Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi is a teacher of Eliyahu Hanavi?
Yeah.
He says, he goes back to Moshe.
Who said, Ovi, Rechnes, Ol, Forosh, of
Elisha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eliyahu Hanavi is a big chacham, so he's able to answer questions. B'koyach chachmos, he's able to answer questions. Not as right. So here, the Rabbi, I don't want. There's enough.
Maybe like a melech. Also, he'll have the power. He's going to be the.
He's not going to be the melech. Sheikh will be the melech.
He's
Huh?
not saying he's another.
As a hero, sure.
No, he says his keach of Paskinim will be the same.
As if Eidechot could establish something, and once the Eidechot establishes, Besdin gives it a gushpanke of kosher or trade, Yom Kippur and as weiter ledugme.
Right.
He gives a gushpanke. This is like that. I'll say Eidechot als Melech,
Als Birer HaMetzias oder Psak HaLocha? Psak HaLocha kann nicht sein. Kann das nicht sein. So fine. So the Rebbe spoke about this in Tav Shemem. The Rebbe gave a hand in himself. It wasn't Muga. The Rebbe didn't edit it. It's unclear to know. The Rebbe goes back and forth over. The Rebbe just throws in an interesting idea over here. And the truth is, this idea is a little bit more discussed by the Mabit. He wrote a Sefer Beis Elokim, and he discussed it there about Tchias HaMeisim and other points. The Rebbe says like this: there's a whole discussion, another interesting question about Eliyahu Hanavi. It's very interesting question, but whatever. It's if Eliyahu Hanavi's wife, after Eliyahu Hanavi went up to heaven, if his wife is permissible to marry someone else. What's the question? The question is Eliyahu Hanavi's departure from this world considered like a regular soul that leaves his body? Huh? Discussed by early, yeah. As was? Huh? It's discussed, yeah. So the Rebbe says that there's different ways of looking at it. From one hand, his soul he left this world, but his soul didn't necessarily leave his body. And even what happened with the soul of his body, I want to get into it. The question is exactly what happened. Whatever it is, I don't want to get a number of different opinions. He went up with it. That's a good question. If he went up with his body,
general question is the Misa doing something like a get, or the other ways. The guy disappeared. He's not here. So when he comes back, his life was done like a get. So it's done, finished, goodbye.
Yeah, all these things. There's chakiras galore. So now the Rebbe says like this. The Rebbe says that if you hold Eliyahu, the Rebbe says interesting. The Rebbe doesn't discuss Eliyahu Hanavi doing this as a chacham, more as a navi sort of. If Eliyahu Hanavi, you say that when he left this world, it's considered that he left. So then whatever he does, the same we have a rule, Torah is not into heaven. Whatever Eliyahu Hanavi comes and says, we don't accept, because even when he reappears as a neshama in a body, but it's like someone coming from the heaven. However, if you say that Eliyahu Hanavi is still considered halachically alive or connected to this world, that his wife can't remarry. So then when Eliyahu Hanavi comes back into this world, so he says something in Torah, he's not saying something in Torah as like they're saying something in heaven about Torah. He's saying something in Torah like a regular Rav, a regular one of Tanaim of Amiram.
Moshe Rabbeinu also went to the heaven.
Yeah, Moshe Alamarim, he came back down. So now the Rebbe discussed. The Rebbe, the Baal Shem never left this world like Eliyahu Hanavi. Aliyas Neshama is something else. The soul went up, the body remained here.
But that halacha was not back then. Was the wife? The wife needed to know back then.
Enochinami, but it's.
There was no paskin back then.
The question is also by Tchias HaMeisim. The question is also negated Tchias HaMeisim if they're going to need to be a new marriage. There's a whole discussion about it. At any rate, so. Yeah, the Rebbe spoke about. The Rebbe didn't spoke about if he's a Navi, a Chacham, whatever it is. The Rebbe it's not clear to me exactly what the Rebbe's maskana was on the matter. But the Beis Elokim the Mabit, he mentions interesting concepts. He discusses how the return of Torah after Tchias HaMeisim. He says a very powerful thing. Even though, again, I'm sure you look in different sources, different ways to look at it. He says even Eliyahu Hanavi has an advantage even over Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Moshe Rabbeinu will come back as a neshama beguf. As a neshama beguf, he comes back to this world, a soul and a body. Nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was gone from this world for so many years, and his soul was in Gan Eden. His understanding, if you have a doubt in Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu is definitely going to know it. But his understanding can't be considered. Torah has to have certain, I don't know exactly how to put it, Torah has to be within the Gedorim, within the ramifications of this physical world down here. Moshe Rabbeinu coming back down after being away from this world for so many thousands of years, not being involved in this world, and learning Torah in such a high level, comes back here, his understanding, his seichel can't really be related to the intellect of this world. So Lagabe, even Moshe as a neshama beguf, you could still say in certain extent, certain similar concept, like Torah le b'shemaim, like Torah is not in the heaven. So Moshe Rabbeinu, even when he comes back after Tchias HaMeisim, he won't have the power to say Azoy and Azoy, because whatever he's saying, it's not malubish, it's not enclosed in this world. Eliyahu Hanavi says his soul, his body, aside from one hand, he knows what's going on in the spiritual worlds, and he's a prophet. His soul went up. The other hand, his body still retained an attachment to this world. First of all, he never left his body. Whatever that means, he discusses that his body became more pure. I don't want to get into that discussion because it's going to be a whole talk on itself, and it's totally irrelevant right now. And he comes back into this world the whole time, right? For every bris milah, he's very well aware of what's going. He was fine, good, but he's very well aware of what's going on in this world. He interacts with this world. So Eliyahu Hanavi, he never left this world. He knows what's going on, so he's going to come back. So he'll tell us when he comes back, it's loy b'shemayim because Eliyahu Hanavi, he's going at least on one. The Rebbe mentioned this way he's looking, but he's clearly looking at it from the aspect that Eliyahu Hanavi never fully left this world. So when he comes back and he says something, it's not going to be considered as something being said to the world from a level which is beyond the capacity of this world. Left this world. No. When the neshama comes, somebody comes and he has Elias and neshama, and his soul from Tzaddik Lamaila tells him that in the base in Shemaila they just pass in the halacha kach v'kach. Yeah, you can't pass him like that. I'll say another point, and then you might understand a little bit better what I'm trying to say. But you can't pass him based on Atzilus. No, yeah. Fine, it's not. There's the Gedorim of Eilam Haz. It has to be within the fund. It has to be here. It has to be Torah Lo B'Shemayim. Torah says that Torah is not in heaven. What does that mean? It means that Torah, the essence of Torah was given the way a human being living in a physical world where he doesn't experience necessarily the gloom of Atzilus. But even if he does, he's still limited to a body works and in such a place where such a body works and lives. Once somebody leaves the confines of this world, his understanding of Torah reaches much greater heights. But the essence of Torah, the Eibusha decided is betachtonim, is in this world. Atzilus might be here, but Atzilus is not a tachton. The Torah was given as dira betachtonim. Torah is given down. It has to be understood by someone who's living in a physical world and relates to the physical way of life. as long, and I'll say another point which will help understand the previous point. The Rebbe explains in the Sikha, in the Chudei Sikha Chelek Dal and Pirkei Avos, the Rebbe discusses the first mission of Pirkei Avos, which discusses the tradition of Torah. It says Moshe received the Torah, Moshe Masada to Yeshua, the Yeshua gave it to the Nevi'im, to the prophets gave it to the elders, and the Rebbe discusses, I don't want to get through the whole Sikha, the Rebbe discusses how the lesson of the Mishnah to us, how in the understanding of Torah and the receiving of Torah, there's different levels that a person has to have internalized in his own soul, which represent the elders, the prophets. And the Rebbe says like this, the Rebbe says every inyan in Torah, this is another discussion, this is another concept which again will lead to bigger discussion, but every concept in Torah, it says, when a Tana paskin the halacha, when Abida paskin the halacha, it says, it's not just pshat that he looked at it the way it makes sense to him, in his physical brain, okay, what's pshat in the halacha, and that's how he paskin. Because whenever a Tana Amoida paskin the halacha, he saw the way that thing is above in the spiritual source. And that's what led him to paskin the halacha. But hold on a second, because you see that in Atzilus, the equivalent of this question means kach, such and such, it doesn't help you paskin the halacha. So what's pshat? Pshat is that Tana Amoida worked with his intellect to a degree that he was able to explain in human seichel, he was able to bring down this idea that he saw and explain in human intellect why it makes sense to say such and such and such. So you have to be able to bring it down. The Rebbe explains, there's a whole story in the Gemara, where there was a famous debate in Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanas and other Chachamim about the Tana Shel Achnai, a whole debate whether a certain halacha. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanas says, from the heaven let them prove, and then he said, let the walls of the different thing. Let the wall come down. Things were changing. So the Rebbe asks a question, what's going on over here? Rabbi Eliezer also holds that Torah is not in the heaven. So he explains, Rabbi Eliezer wasn't trying to say that because in the heaven they're going to make the wall change and this, that means that that's what the halach is. If the heaven shows that the heaven shows what he's saying is right, so he says, now try to think and try to bring it down into your intellect, that in your intellect you should try to understand that this is the way it's supposed to be. So what happens is the Chachamim saw these miracles, they just thought about it, and they said, at the end of the day, is our intellect doesn't understand this way. So if our intellect can't grasp the Torah loy b'shamayim, just because in heaven that's what they're inclined to say, we can't accept it. So the idea basically is the Rebbe says, when it says Eliyahu Hanavi, the Rebbe says a similar word regarding this whole discussion over here. Eliyahu Hanavi is going to have to answer things based on Chacham. You can't say that in the heavenly court that's what the halacha is and that answers your question. You have to prove it with human intellect. But what is he going to do? Because he's a Navi, he's going to be able to see the halacha the way it's above in its spiritual source. And then he'll be able, with his wisdom, to bring down this concept that it's above. He'll be able to prove it through human intellect and reasoning to bring it down here. And really the truth is brought down, even the Vilna Goyen writes, in order to pass in the halacha nigla, you have to know how it works up Kabbalah. That's the concept. So in other words, the idea is, yes, Atzilus might be here, but as long as we can't bring Atzilus down into you, if your human intellect still doesn't understand the way it is in Atzilus, then regarding that, we say Torah loy b'shamayim. There's a few more points. Huh?
Yes, the Bilom, or the Malach. The Malach was something elevated. But then Hashem revealed that Bilom was able to see.
Whichever way, I don't know. What happened with Bilom, I don't know.
No.
But I just a few more.
I'm just giving you the idea that things that Almighty will be revealed.
Yeah, but revealed, it has to be revealed in Seichel.
Yeah, in Seichel. Bilom attacking his
But you say that there's two different intellects. The one of the Tana who won't bring it up, that wasn't enough because he brought it through down.
That wasn't enough, but it wasn't
Not
enough.
enough. He said the Hakam didn't understand it. So there's
yeah. In other words, he understood it a certain way. Yeah, there's intellect
so
above.
not enough. That he's bringing
He's not the majority. It has to be that the majority of the Chachamim understand it that way.
The Gemara says more than a mayor, the Chachamim say alone. The why is the loch not like you're saying? Because the Chachamim lay yochel not it couldn't grasp that. The loch is not like you.
The Rambam, for the Doyle, to bring it down, for them was great Sachen. Once they brought it down, we could all understand it.
Yeah. Just there's another Nukuda. How much more time do I have? One more Nukuda. There's a whole different approach over here, which because even like I told you, even certain people that are not happy with some of the answers. they give a whole different. Ben Ish Chai gives a very different approach. He says Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come. Eliyahu Hanavi, the Gemara says, he hung around all the yeshivas, whether you saw him or not, but he was around. So let's say in the Gemara there's a doubt. It says we don't know what's pshat in what Rabbi Eliezer said. So Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come. He's not going to say not as a prophet, not as a scholar. He's going to say as a witness, as I was in the yeshiva of Rabbi Eliezer, and I could testify that this is how he learned pshat. Or when there's a doubt in the Gemara and we say Teiku, so Eliyahu Hanavi will come and say that I was there in a previous generation, and I know that this is the way the Chachamim paskin in such a case. So Eliyahu Hanavi, in this case, he's not, because he spans so many generations, and thus Eliyahu Hanavi will come as a witness. Another point, I just want to finish with Al Pi Chassidus. Al Pi Chassidus, the Rebbe Rashab does a very interesting thing. There's a whole different understanding over here in this idea of Teiku. He gives a different understanding here. He says that I don't want to go through the whole Hemshech Eter, Tafei Shain, and discusses the meaning of Das. There's the three different parts of intellect and Das. But when you have two sides of looking at it, you need to have sometimes, intellectually there's a tie. You need to be able to have an idea of Das, of profound oneness with the concept to decide what is. Eliyahu Hanavi is a level of Das. Eliyahu Hanavi will bring into the world is certain that even those things that intellectually are tied, he'll give a way I could interpret it of this, he'll give us the koyach that we should be able to be machri. It's not that Eliyahu Hanavi will say kach v'kach. Eliyahu Hanavi will bring this level of understanding to the world that we will be able to get to the bottom of the intellectual things and get to clear maskana. Anyway,
the story of when you read the Dr. Edwin, he said the showed one of the signals. They said to Dr. Edwin, this person has Eliyahu. That's what they mentioned. And while afterwards, they told him that this person has Eliyahu Neshama. In a day,
anyway, Rabbi Moshiach now.
It was interesting maybe for another class, I don't know, about another topic. What's for example, here you say, what, Moshiach never solved these things?
Oh, we had a whole discussion.